Joining us now from Columbia's campus as well, Bruce Robbins, a professor at Columbia University. Professor, it's great seeing you. I thank you for your time. You've visited
Thanks for having me.
This encampment of students protesting the war at your university. How do you see it?
Well, I admire the students enormously. I admire their sentiments and their courage. Frankly, I'm very disappointed in the administration. I think it's very short-sighted for them not, at the very, very least. I mean, I think they should be considering divestment more seriously. If they saw themselves in history, they would be thinking about South Africa and how clearly it was a good thing. History has judged it to be a good thing to divest from a white supremacist state. The slaughter in Gaza certainly stacks up pretty well against the white supremacy of South Africa. I think the students are right to ask for divestment. If the university can't give the students everything they want, they could do something symbolically very powerful by saying, we will divest, for example, from X country, Y company, which are, say, providing arms and helping very, very directly in the slaughter in Gaza. There are things the university could do if they were more statesmanlike, if they had more of a sense of where they belong in history, a sense that there are more important things. History will judge. There are more important things than some nice graduation pictures.
And so I know that you've written about some of the ways you feel the university's president has mishandled these demonstrations. What are your main criticisms?
Well, my main criticism is that the president called in the police. I think almost all of the faculty is united in feeling that. And many, many people, probably as many people on the faculty, are united in thinking that in her testimony before the House of Representatives, she didn't stand up for the principles of the university. She really just was craven, and so were the trustees who testified with her. So the university generally did not show its best side in either of those ways.
What do you see as principles, those principles that you think were violated by the president and the board of trustees? What were those principles violated?
Well, for example, to tell the House of Representatives that one faculty member would never teach at Columbia again. To tell the House, I mean, the president doesn't have the authority to decide any such thing. To reveal the information about an investigation that was supposedly happening of another professor, when it appears there was no such investigation. But in any case, if there were an investigation, it would be anonymous. So transparency, shared governance is important because you don't call in the police without asking the faculty senate. The faculty senate was created after 1968 exactly to avoid this kind of situation. The president doesn't seem to be aware that she had an obligation to consult the faculty, and we on the faculty think that she did.
And Professor, just your thoughts on, and maybe just a broader conversation about freedom of speech, freedom from intimidation. We have seen pictures and videos of chants inside the Columbia University campus that many would consider anti-Semitic, racist, and hateful.
Sorry.
Where do you think, Professor? Oh, you all right?
I'm sorry. It was a phone call. I just had to hang up.
Okay, that's all right. Live TV has everything, and I just want your thoughts, if you would, about freedom of expression, freedom from intimidation. Some pictures that we have seen from inside that encampment show signs and some chants that many would consider offensive, intimidating, anti-Semitic. Where do you think, Professor, the line should be between free speech and the freedom to protest and intimidation, lack of respect for others' perspectives, opinions, or even religion?
Yeah, you pose a very, very complicated question. I recognize that it is a complicated question. I think intimidation is a very strong word. And much of what has been called intimidation, the sorts of things that have been called in question as endangering the safety of Jewish students. I mean, I say this as a Jew on campus. It's really been a matter of making people feel uncomfortable rather than intimidating or in any way threatening people. Yeah, it hasn't really been threatening. I'm sorry, the words are failing me. So yes, it's a genuine question. What I have thought, and I've said a couple of other times before, is that universities have the right, even an obligation, to create speech codes and to sustain speech codes on campus, which are different from what is constitutionally available outside campus in the United States. So, for example, I do not think that genocidal discourse should be permissible on campus, because that would genuinely be intimidating for anybody targeted by that that discourse. But when I say that, when I feel it, and I do feel it as somebody who has been verbally and physically assaulted by anti-Semites, I just don't think there has been any genocidal talk at this encampment. I realize, all right, the exception would be the one thing that everybody has heard about, the young man who said that Zionists didn't have the right to live. He said this 3 months before the encampment. He apologized for it afterwards. It was not representative of the things that I have heard in the encampment.
And I got to tell you, that's such an important. It's an important conversation. I am so glad that you are with us this morning to give your perspective. It's a very important perspective, Professor. I do think, and for a future conversation, this whole concept of that you can, for example, as a human being, say that other human beings should not have the right to live, to exist, and that an apology for that is an interesting concept, and I think it's one that I'd like to have with you going forward. But Professor, I am very grateful for your time today.
I'm sorry, it was a grotesque statement. I have to get that in there, and it's grotesque and unrepresentative.
Yeah, and I mean, how you then say, "I'm sorry that I said that." You know, anyway.
Apologies don't work, Professor, anyway.
That's true. Hey, listen, it's been great chatting with you. I hope to continue our conversation going forward.